In the previous video, I mentioned that most instruments read music from a single staff, but some instruments like piano, for example, have quite an extended range of notes they can play. Piano reads music from something called grand staff. This is a combination of both the treble and bass clef staves. Typically, the right-hand part is shown in treble clef, and the left-hand part is shown in bass clef. Now, grand staff is important not just for extending the written range of music, but it also helps to show the relationship between the treble and bass clef staves. On treble clef, if I start on G and I count down to C below the staff, I'll get a note with one ledger line below the staff. Likewise, in bass clef, if I start on F and count up to C, I'll get a note with one ledger line above the staff. Now, these two notes on C are actually the exact same pitch, so you can think of the grand staff as a range of all the notes on the piano, and the two staves are connected in the middle by this note C, and this C in the middle of the two staves is appropriately named middle C. On the piano, middle C is located here. So as you move up the staff, you hit all of the white keys on the piano. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C again. As you move down the staff into the bass clef, you get the same pattern, just backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. I'll come back to the black keys on the piano in the next two videos. So here's middle C again, and if you count up or down the grand staff, you'll see there's several other Cs above and below middle C. These notes have an interval relationship between them called an octave. So this C could be described as being one octave higher than middle C. And this one could be described as being one octave lower than middle C. The octave is both a musical interval term, but also an acoustics term. For example, the frequency of middle C is around 261.63 Hz. If you go up an octave to the next C up, it'll sound higher in pitch, and the frequency doubles. This C is around 523.25 Hz. If you go down an octave, the note will sound lower in pitch, and the frequency halves, so this is around 130.81 Hz. Rather than referring to octaves by their specific frequencies, you can use something called octave identification to know which note you're referring to in a specific octave or a specific register. In traditional written music, middle C is called C4, up an octave is C5, up another octave is C6, and you can keep going up and up. Moving downward, the C below middle C is called C3, and then C2, and so on and so on. Here's the tricky part. In DAWs and on a lot of keyboards and synthesizers, middle C is actually referred to as C3, not C4. It doesn't mean the note has been transposed by an octave or anything like that. They just call middle C C3 in most DAWs. So when you open up your piano roll editor and start typing in notes, just keep this in mind that C3 is middle C as you enter in notes. This is just a weird byproduct of different synthesizer and keyboard manufacturers referring to middle C differently. And every DAW I've ever used refers to middle C as C3. So for the duration of this course, I'm going to refer to middle C as C3 as well. So when do you switch the number to a new octave identification? What if I have a note in between C3 and C4, like this note A here? The octave identification changes on the note C. So from middle C up to the B right before C4, these all carry the octave designation of 3. So C3, D3, E3, F3, G3, A3, B3, and then finally C4. And this carries on above and below. Moving down from middle C, you have C3, B2, A2, G2, F2, E2, D2, C2, and then moving down another octave, B1, A1, and so forth and so on. These all translate over into piano roll as well. So it's important to know what octave you're working in to identify what register you're working in. This is also important for working with sampler instruments and synthesizers as well. Samplers use octave identification to identify where a particular sample is loaded in the instrument. Even drum samplers use this. In most drum sample instruments, your kick drum is always on C1, and your snares are on D1 and E1. So just take my word for it, understanding where notes are on the staff, in piano roll, and on the keyboard, as well as understanding the octave identification for each note, is paramount for music production. It's an absolute must. So if you haven't already, start memorizing these notes and octaves because it'll really help you speak the language with musicians and break down a lot of barriers when you're collaborating with musicians in the studio.